Travel insurance is actually one of the most outdated industries. After your trip, you might get a check in the mail like we're in the 80s. Technology is an enabler to do it faster, better.
The idea of having something instant is just inevitable.
Say your flight has been canceled. We could detect that a flight has been canceled over times before the airline might tell you. Here's instant compensation. Now let's help you recover from that cancellation and get back on your trip.
Hello and welcome to the very special and featured episode of the Autonomous Business Podcast, a podcast that we do with Enso and Forbes about AI and how the autonomous business is evolving. And today I have a very special friend and a guest with me, Elad Schaffer, the co-founder and CEO of Faye. Faye is one of the most incredible AI-first insurance companies in the travel space, taking pretty much all over the world, starting from the US though. And hello, Elad.
Hi, Mickey. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think, just to kick it off, it would be great if you could just share a little bit about what Faye is. I've known Elad for a very long time, and I've known the very first iteration of how the company started, which I'm very, very excited about. Though I'm very sad that I was not able to invest early on, and I don't know why. I do want to hear your perspective about what Faye is and what are you trying to achieve.
Sure. And maybe you didn't get to invest, Mickey, but you have been a great friend and mentor and colleague in building the business. So we appreciate that for sure.
Thank you.
So Faye is an autonomous platform for traveler care. We try to holistically care for travelers regardless of where they are in the world by combining travel insurance solutions, travel care solutions, helping you overcome different travel hiccups, financial solutions for when you travel, like payments, loans, and savings, and information solutions, keeping you abreast of everything you need to know. So we're more known today as the fastest growing and highest rated travel insurance company in the US, but our ambition and our scope is significantly larger, trying to tackle any potential obstacle you might experience when you're traveling overseas.
That's great. And I think, we all are travelers, and we're all traveling around the world. And, what's so called when X hit the fan, it's a very unpleasant experience when you're getting stuck. And I want to hear a little bit about how do you see the experience of insurance, which is something that usually people don't think about very deeply because it's something that you buy just in case. How do you think about the experience behind insurance and how it evolved maybe during the AI revolution?
Sure. So let's start with what is insurance. Insurance is selling trust, right? We sell you a promise that if something happens, we will make you whole. We can make you whole by giving you money, reimbursing you for losses incurred, or we can make you whole by helping you fix your problem, right? So we're selling trust. We're not selling software per se. Technology is an enabler to do it faster, better, in a way that supports the customer in the best of ways, right? So travel insurance is actually one of the most outdated industries. It hasn't seen a lot of innovation. A lot of it is still rooted in submitting lengthy claims through receipts and other forms you might need to fill and waiting for weeks, sometimes months. And then when you're back home in New York after your trip, you might get a check in the mail like we're in the 80s. So a lot of the process is broken. And we believe that technology and AI within it is a huge enabler of better customer experience. So think full automation of claims, getting claims resolved in seconds or minutes and not in weeks. Think instant compensation directly into digital means as opposed to waiting for a check. Think of a more friendly way to understand and consume your insurance. But that's just stage one, right? Getting insurance done in a way that is instant, delightful, digital, technology forward. But we also argue that oftentimes when we're traveling, what you need is a solution, not just money. So think to perhaps you're traveling through Berlin, heading to the US, and now you miss your connecting flight. that's a bummer, right? You might
It
have
is a bummer.
incurred costs of another night at the hotel and incidentals. And it would be really nice if there was an insurance solution that enabled to identify that missed connection and tell you, hey, Mickey, we see that your flight is missed. Here's instant compensation for any losses you might incur that night at the hotel, those incidentals. But now let's help you solve that problem. Because guess what? We know how many seats are available on the next flight. We know your status with, say, Lufthansa, and we're now able to rebook you to the next available flight and actually help you solve your problem, not just reimburse you after the fact. So you can already see how there's a lot of agentic operations behind the scenes here, both in identifying that flight disruption you have experienced, looking for a potential solution, and hopefully effecting that solution for you. So if insurance started as, hey, we can reimburse you as quickly and as delightfully as we can, what AI enables you is to actually help you solve your problem agentically and get back on your trip in a more positive way.
So you're basically saying, you got my back when I'm traveling, right? So you will either compensate me for financial losses or help me fix problems. And I want to take you to the very early days of what I know about Faye and about you and the vision. And it started with the previous name was Zenner before you guys branded in a very cool way. And I think Zenner's um, promise was all about just the problem fixing specifically for flight cancellation. I think it was very, very early on, was like kind of an assistant or right, or like some type of what is called, like a concierge maybe, that basically takes care of the stuff. Why did you decide to upgrade, I would use, the company into a full care company, including insurance?
Yeah, so it is indeed an interesting period of time to start a travel company. It was late 2019, and we thought we would build an AI travel assistant. So you're right, the formal name of Faye is Zenner. It's actually Zenner AI. Little did we know how AI would change our lives as it does today. But at the time, it was the idea was, hey, if we can try to collect as much information as we can about your flight, airport, and destination, can we crunch that data and try to predict whether your flight will be delayed or canceled? And if we can we alert you that early on, way before the airline tells you that there might be a disruption, and then help you both with information, telling you about that problem, and hopefully helping you fix that. So it was more of a disruption assistance service. And it started off very well. We accumulated a few dozen companies who wanted to use it for their business travelers. And about 3 months later, I want to say, COVID hit and no flights, only masks. And I believe our early investors were probably thinking, what did we do? Why do we give money to those guys building in travel? There was some serious grinding at the time. We were a bit optimistic early on that COVID is going to pass within 2 months and it's all going to be fine. And our core idea of this AI travel assistant would be a phenomenal success. We spent a lot of time coming to the realization that COVID was there to stay for at least some time. And we had to focus or refocus on things that we believed really mattered. And because we already had clients traveling around the world and using us, we started to get a variety of really interesting insights. They said, well, that's nice that you told me about this flight delay, but I'm now hospitalized in Italy. What do I do? How do I access care? How do I get back home? Can you help me evacuate? Right? And that's where the core understanding of insurance as this must-have product started to really get into our heads. So we did end up, I'd say, expanding and making Faye first insurance, and then expanding into more assistance, financial services, information services, and travel solutions. Um, and it probably took us about 14 months to move from Zener AI, that travel assistant on steroids, into this fully autonomous platform for traveler care, which we ended up launching in 2022 in the United States, and soon enough heading to the rest of the world.
This is great. I love this story, and I know the grind, and I know how hard you've been working on this. So it's very touching to see how it all came into fruition and became a the beast that you guys are building. So this is incredible. I think I have a very kind of common question about AI and the industry you guys are in both of them actually, travel and insurance are pretty outdated when it comes to technology, right? So even in the travel space, you will see companies such as booking.com or Google bringing very interesting futuristic solutions into the market, but they're all going to be well behind the rest of the technology spectrum, because travel is hard and it has so many components to it. And one of the things that I'm touching a lot in this podcast is the idea of an AI native company, or what does it mean when AI affects the entire design of a company, um, because of the abilities to build it from scratch, in a new environment. And I'm curious to hear, I assume there are insurance companies in the travel space that they've been around, whatever, 100 years, 50 years, whatever, many, many, many years, that are not very AI native and probably are losing some of it, because it's extremely hard to redesign. What AI brought into the actual customer experience? What it gives me as a customer, the idea that Faye is AI native and was built in the AI transformation kind of time zone.
Yeah. I think we could probably separate AI's impact on travel and then AI impacts on travel insurance.
Right.
And I think when we think of AI in travel, I think an interesting observation just to begin with is if AI delivers on its promise, which we all in this podcast do, that it's going to create so much more productivity and therefore a lot more free income and free time, then Mickey, let me ask you, if you had more free time and more free income, what would you do?
I would
I bet
just
you'd travel.
Yes, I would just travel, exactly.
There you go. So I think there is a lot of tailwind for travel in general. People are going to have a lot more free time, a lot more free income, and they're going to be traveling a lot more. Now, when we think of AI in travel, I think this is one of the most common use cases, right? Every one of us has used whatever AI model to plan a trip. Right? It's one of the most common use cases. Help me plan this trip to Sri Lanka, and then you go back and forth, and you get a lot of inspiration and itinerary planning. I think that's the most obvious use case. What then needs to happen is for customers to feel comfortable enough and have the trust to end up booking with an agent. Right? We're not there yet. There's a lot of talk about agentic commerce. In travel, we see a lot of promise, but it's not happening a lot and at scale just yet. The area Faye plays in is what happens after you booked. And I think this is one of the most interesting areas for disruption initiated by AI. So, what happens when you already booked your trip and now something goes wrong? You need to change your trip. There's a flight delay that causes you to miss your first 2 days, and now you're incurring certain expenses on hotels. You need to rebook yourself. What happens, as you mentioned, when X hits the fan? And that's where a lot of solutions can come into play and help you in identifying those problems early on, enabling you to effect quick solutions by seeing what inventory is available, what does your current status within an airline or a hotel chain allows, and then combining those elements to effect that change onto your trip. And that gets me to AI in insurance. A lot of the AI applications in insurance today are how can we retrofit a model onto our website so that we can handle customer requests quickly, and I would argue with some legacy providers in a way that just deflects that customer. I think that's the wrong way to look at things. AI should be an enabler for a much better customer experience and more effective solutions for those customers. And and by doing that, yes, you can also enjoy a great deal of efficiencies. So let's look at a couple of examples. Maybe you're not feeling well during your trip. In the old world, you might need to search for a local pharmacy or a local doctor, see if they might have time to meet. Then you might need to file a claim after you've paid that doctor. You'll contact your insurance company, you'll submit those lengthy forms and receipts, and you'd hope to be paid after the fact. Today, that doesn't need to be this way. You could answer a couple of questions. The bot can triage that you are entitled to medical compensation when you're on your trip. So it can detect whatever symptoms you might be reporting and say, well, this seems to be covered. Here are local doctors around you. Here are their availabilities. You can go into that doctor's office, or better yet, do it through telemedicine. And then instantly, you wouldn't even need to file a claim. Everything is done behind the scenes within our systems. And you didn't need to you need to pay for that treatment. You need to file a claim. Everything is able to be done A to Z in a claimless way. Let's take another example. Say your flight has been canceled. By connecting to every data point about every single plane, we could detect that a flight has been canceled over times before the airline might tell you. We could see that your policy enables you to get instant compensation when your flight is canceled. We can then alert you, hey, Mickey, your flight has been canceled. Here's instant compensation, those $500 you might be entitled to because your flight has been canceled. If you have incurred additional expenses, please send them here. Now let's help you recover from that cancellation and get back on your trip. So all of these agentic solutions, the combination of real-time proactive flight data with the ability to affect a change into your trip and connecting it to your insurance is what enables a much smoother experience for travelers. And we believe actually delivers what customers need when they're traveling. Because remember, when we're away, we might be the most sophisticated developer or product manager or whatever you might do in high tech. But when you're abroad and you may not speak the local language, you may not know the local services, things can get very, very tricky, stressful, and sometimes very expensive. So even the savviest of travelers can sometimes behave like they're 5-year-olds when that X hits the fan. AI should enable to get that a lot smoother, to help you proactively solve your problems and get you back on the road to do that vacation you always wanted to go out to.
I was thinking about you guys. I had a trip to New York in the past 2 weeks. I was traveling around the East Coast, and unfortunately, I got some infection in my hand, and I had to go to an urgent care center in Boston. And the like the service was incredible. I was in and out in like 30 minutes, the whole thing. They got me wrapped, they did the whole thing, they cleaned it up, whatever. And it was incredible. And then I reached out to the insurance company. And and I was talking to them over chat. And I was the whole thing I was thinking about Faye and how it would be much easier if I could just get a tap and just pay for it on spot. But I was talking to the agent, human agent, on the other side, sorry, and they sent me a document, the size of the Empire State Building. Like hundreds of questions about this 30 minutes visit, literally like short visit, and it was not a lot of money. It was like $250. And I dropped it. And I said, listen, I don't want to fill it in. I'll just pay the $200 and I'll leave it alone. And then I thought about you guys. I was like, how am I supposed to go back to the same company the next time if I know that if something goes wrong, the experience is so annoying that I have to kind of go through this. So I really feel, as a customer, the idea of having something instant is just inevitable. It's not about improving the experience. It's about, like, everything else feels bad for me as a customer. And I'm taking this, to the next question, which I'm very, very excited about, and hearing your thoughts, because insurance has traditionally been built pretty much around uncertainty, right? So it was about trying to calculate the balance, and understand what it would cost for me as a customer to protect myself from the uncertainties that can come up in on my way in the journey. And AI is increasingly reducing uncertainty because it gives you lots of real time data prediction. You can know, as you mentioned, many data points about planes and cancellations and where you are. Um, what I'm what I really do care about, will this change the business model over time of what insurance
So
has
I
been?
think it will. So in the end, insurance is about trust, but it's rooted in data and statistics, right? It's exactly what you mentioned. It's evaluating the risk and being able to price it in a way
Right.
that is intelligent, in a way that can factor a variety of sources, and in a way that is forward-looking. Because there are many things that you might be able to predict, maybe a flight delay based on a certain frequency. It's much harder to predict whether you might get sick before your trip and need to cancel it altogether, or if your kid might get injured during a trip, right? So we need to be able to factor all of these things. We need to be able to respond to real world events, wars, government shutdowns, and the like, and affect those changes very quickly. So when you think of disruption and AI innovation in insurance, we started by talking about claim automation, and we believe that we can automate 90% of claims so that you can be paid in seconds. But another really exciting area is, what do you do with underwriting, right? That pricing of risk. How can you make sure that you are personalizing the policy for the individual traveler and the individual risk that they might be on? It might relate to their age, their trip type, the airline they might elect to use, the destination. And obviously, all of these factors are dynamic. Now, in a very regulated industry, where oftentimes you need to register the product with 50 states in the US and elsewhere in the world, it's very hard to affect those changes quickly. Filing an insurance product can be a process of 1 to 2 years.
Oh wow.
With today's dynamic changes and changing risk profiles, you need to be able to do that a lot quicker. So AI is certainly a huge enabler in underwriting, in fraud detection. Fraud in insurance is a thing, and I think it's going to be even harder now with AI, because you can easily fake a car accident or a doctor's report. So we need to be able to counter that. AI is amazing for customer experience, as we've discussed, for claims intake, for claims resolution. What it doesn't replace is the trust framework that insurance needs to operate within, right? We're selling you a promise, and we need to deliver on that promise in a way that is highly regulated. Uh, our company alone has about 250 licenses just to perform offering insurance, solving insurance claims, making those payments in the United States. So within that highly regulated framework that I guess many financial services and products are subject to, we are leveraging AI for the betterment of the customer experience, for smarter underwriting, and for smarter claims handling.
This is incredible. I love it. Um, I'm thinking again about my experience, or like the experience of buying insurance, and and I want to connect this to a little bit to what's so called agentic commerce, which is, AI agents are, there are billion AI agents today in the world, and it's been a year. So we can take it to 10 billion in like whatever 2 years. It's going to be huge. Um, and customers today, at least, compare insurance products based on brand, price, which I think is regulated, right? Because the price is very much the same or like very similar between brands, and coverage, right? Like what the brand gives me. And in an agentic world, an AI may be able to compare whatever thousands of different policies, details, and do it instantly. Does this turn insurance into a more commoditized product, or will it create new ways to differentiate products because of AI agents? I'm curious about how you see the
Uh,
future.
I think insurance, from as an insurance product, is already fairly commoditized, and you said it well. Anyone can take an existing insurance product, at least in our space in travel insurance today, copy it, file it again within the regulator, and they have that piece of paper that's called an insurance policy, and it's as well as anyone else's. I think what differentiates is what you do with that insurance policy, right? And what you do with that is how quickly are you able to handle claims? How fast do you respond to your customers? Are you proactive, anticipating problems and fixing them ahead of time? Or are you reactive? You wait for a claim to be filed, and then you wait and wait and wait, and perhaps you pay the customer. Right? It's what you do with insurance where the real difference between a piece of paper that might be identical across different insurance carriers and providers and the actual end user who needs that insurance. Now, the way we view specifically our space is that travel insurance alone is not enough. You can make it fully agentic. You can make it an amazing experience for customers to use. But, how often do we need to file a claim? Perhaps 10% of times we might need to file a claim with an insurance policy. But a lot more frequently, we experience issues on our trip. An issue that may not necessarily result in a financial loss, but it might be a very stressful situation. We might lose on an adventure that we have planned. We might experience a delay and we're a bit uncertain. These are also areas of stress where insurance that is supposed to give that peace of mind doesn't really deliver on today. And that's where a concept we call travel care comes into play. Can we anticipate your needs and not just reimburse you, but also help solve your problem? Help you rebook that flight, help you reissue the passport you may have lost, help you during a time of a stressful situation. And these things, by and large, can be done in a fully agentic way. I think there's a point, though, Mickey, to be said about some things you may not want AI to do, right? And I think in many cases, specifically in travel insurance, there are areas where you need a human involved. So one area is regulated. If you're going to deny a claim, still, we prefer that a human reviews that claim. But second, and more interestingly, if you now need to be hospitalized, Mickey, I believe you might want to speak to an actual human. If it's an emergency, if you need to be evacuated from a place of danger, we want a human involved in it, both because we believe that's the most responsible way, at least today, but also because that's what the customers expect at a time of emergency. So they might not need it when their flight is canceled or delayed, or they might just need to speak to a doctor through telemedicine. But if you're now hospitalized or need evacuation or repatriation, that's where humans need to be involved. And that's how AI can free up the time of human adjusters and customer experience representatives to focus on critical care where a human is needed.
Listen, so the question is, if my personal AI, and it's going to be probably where the world is going to, right? We're going to have an AI agent that is a personal assistant. It will book travel for us at some point. It will probably buy insurance for us at some point, and et cetera. But I think there's lots of data about myself in my phone, about my travel habits, about my risk tolerance, the credit cards, my health, even the steps I'm taking on a daily basis. So I want to understand a little more about, what do you think AI will change when it comes to the relationship between the agent and the insurer? So at some point, if this happens, will you guys design a whole new world of communicating with agents, or will you or will you always prefer to talk to me personally as opposed to trying to go through the machine?
I think that's an amazing question. It actually relates to the experience you described earlier about that hospital visit in Boston, right? You could have filed that claim, but you didn't want to because you were submitted with those lengthy forms, and you said, why bother? And I think that question is becoming irrelevant if you could ask your AI assistant to file that claim on your behalf, and they could be the ones engaging with the insurance provider. They can be the ones who are responding, waiting, perhaps experiencing that frustration that otherwise you might experience as a customer. So 100%, I believe that in the future, which is not so far away, you'll be able to tell your AI assistant, hey, file this claim for me. All the information is already in my inbox, on my drive, wherever that might be. If you need anything else, just ask me. But you now go and deal with the insurance companies. So 100% we are anticipating more and more interactions with those AI personal assistants, and we will need to be able to work with them. It'll probably actually make things a lot more efficient, because one of the main reasons that customers' claims are not solved in time is because we're waiting on the customer. We've asked for certain documents and they might need to look for them. And it's a bit annoying. You need to find that receipt and look up that police report or whatever it might be. And that causes delays. So more often than not, because we have really fantastic SLAs, we're actually waiting on the customer to get back to us. If we could work with the customer's AI assistant, I believe that's for the better of everyone.
I love it. That's my dream. When will you guys be available outside of the United States?
So actually, pretty soon, we started by entering the U.S. market because it's the most underrated, underpenetrated, and underserved travel insurance market today in the world. The adoption rates are still fairly low. There's huge room for growth. Faye has been skyrocketing in that area, and it's fantastic. But we're already investing now in creating the infrastructure, localization, licenses, technology, and other investments in licensure and other regulatory framework to take Faye from the US globally. And I believe this time next year, when you and I gather for the annual recreation of this podcast, Faye will be available everywhere in the world.
Wow, I'm excited for this. I wanna pivot the conversation a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey or the journey as a founder. And I'm having here on the podcast different founders from different angles, industries, experiences, etc. And I always ask the same question because the answer remains extremely fascinating per person. You've been a founder for a very long time. You founded a company before. This is not your first rodeo. Then now you have another one, and Faye is doing incredibly well. How did the role of the founder change um, from your perspective in the past few years, given this entire AI crazy revolution?
I think we need to be honest with ourselves and say that there's a lot that we don't know. And there's a lot of FOMO out there. And we're all inundated with the news of the new technology or this new model that has just been released. I'm a big follower of everything that you, Mickey, are producing, the WhatsApp groups and other
Woo!
articles you're writing. And it's hard to keep up. And so I think first it's about admitting that it's hard. Things are changing around us. And our role as founders and CEOs is to be as forward looking as we can and to push the organization in the direction that we believe it needs to go. I think it's very obvious that every company has to become AI forward, AI native, whatever you may want to call it. The only question is, how do you induce it? And frankly, I don't believe that it has to come from the top, because top down is almost like forcing the company to do something. And it's more likely than not that the hungry, the folks who are very passionate about technology, oftentimes the younger folks within your company will be the ones who will be bringing up all of their ideas and educating the company on how to do things in the best way. And I think that if it's coming from the ground up, then it's a lot healthier. And our role is to enable that, to give them the best resources, and to make decisions on where the biggest investments in AI should occur. Where's the biggest ROI? And oftentimes, CEOs tend to think of the impact of AI in efficiency. Well, we may not need to hire this many folks. Well, that's true. There's a lot of savings and there's a lot of, call it, margin expansion that can be driven by automation and agentic operations. But I think what's more interesting is how can you leverage AI to do more, to grow faster, to build new products faster. So, in other words, AI for growth as opposed to AI just for efficiency. And I think these are the types of decisions that founders need to make today, where they end up investing and where they don't succumb into the FOMO alone. I think it's a hard one. And I think we struggle with that as well. Initially, it was just about efficiency, but now we're pivoting a lot of that thought as to how can AI enable us to grow this much faster.
I love it. I love it though. I really want to hear your thoughts about, we always bring into this podcast the idea that now you can build anything. Um, and AI just brought this idea of producing any dream from a prompt, from a product perspective. And I kind of, curious to hear if you would have. We do have many young founders, or like founders who are just starting out, um, um, coming up with different questions about how to build a company. If you were to build a company today, how would it be different? Given your vast experience, um, as a founder with AI.
I think it's about the profile of those that come with you along the way. In the end, great companies are built on fantastic foundations, and foundations are usually people. And in the old world, you wanted people for specific professions. And I think now you want people who are a lot more um, builders in their nature. And that separation between different roles is becoming a bit more blurry. So you want people who are a lot more of a rounded talent than otherwise, and I think that helps you build that foundation layer for any company, and that's very different to how when you and I started our first companies. You had someone for marketing and someone for product and someone for R&D. I think those lines are blurry, and you are expecting people to build things for themselves and for the company as a first principle. I think the other thing that is changing is the speed of execution. Companies are expected to act this much faster. If you're doubling your sales year over year, that's just not good enough. So we're also in a very different era, at least for VC-backed companies or startup land, if you will, where the expectation is to move this much faster and to grow that much faster.
I love it. Elad, thank you so much for taking this interview. I know you're extremely busy and you're building this incredible company. And I personally had to convince you and to push a little bit just to get you on board, because I really wanted to have this conversation. So I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for inviting me. This was tons of fun.
That's true.